was one such man, one who had lost all, over and over. He believed he could silence the cacophony in his mind and find peace beyond a place he called the Plains of Silence.
Developed by Avalanche Studios and published by Warner Brothers comes Mad Max. Now, if you haven't seen any of the movies, that's fine. This game is completely separate, but it does have a few nods and references. Mad Max takes place in post-apocalyptic Australia, overrun with bandits, loonies, and it has a heavy focus on cars. I think this game was kind of forgotten about, mainly just because there were so many good games in 2015. You had The Witcher 3, Metal Gear 5, Bloodborne, Fallout 4, and many more. The game starts with you following a convoy, and then they kind of beat the shit out of you and steal your car, and you meet up with a weird hunchback named Chumbucket. He believes you to be a saint for his weird little prophecy, and he makes a new car for you called the Magnum Opus. The game's music is alright, nothing that really stands out as a memorable track, but it all fits the tone of the game. It's mainly just ambient tracks, and it feels like a Hans Zimmer-inspired typical movie score. Now, the graphics and art direction is where I think the game's style and presentation really shines. For being made in 2015, the game's fidelity is pretty good. When you get super close to models, you can see the texture quality isn't that good, but its effects and the lighting, that's what really steals the show. The sand that gets kicked up as you drift, an explosion of a car's fuel tank, fire pluming from your car's exhaust, or the dust and lightning during a storm, this game truly can look amazing, especially when destroying things. Bits and pieces flying everywhere, car doors being ripped off by a harpoon, or oil pumps exploding. All the cars and factions have so much personality too. It's easy to tell each faction apart just from cars alone. Each faction does have unique character designs, though sometimes in the factions themselves, it's hard to tell units apart from each other. But overall, it's fantastic. Sound design is great as well. All the car sounds have really good feedback, and it sounds like your car is really using that gasoline. And when in combat, every impact and crack sounds great. It really gives the combat that punch and weight when you suplex a guy. A lot of locations are pretty standout too, ranging from dank dark caves feeling like you're being watched, or an oil rig taken over by war boys. The game world has 5 areas, and they can end up blending together somewhat, but some of them do stand out, like the big dried coral reefs and Gastown, and even the dunes. But overall, it's mainly just desert. The voice acting for Max is a little off. Something just sounds kinda bad about it. It's really only the beginning. Later on, he does get better.
Shucks, and links too.
It's gonna be 8 cylinders, nothing less.
We will get there. Yes. First, we have to get her beautificial body.
Show me where it is.
But the rest of the supporting cast is great. I really love Griffa and Chumbucket, and overall the voice acting is good. There's 2 parts to the gameplay, driving and on foot. Honestly, this game is some of my favorite driving in pretty much any game, mainly just because of how car combat and customization works. You get to pick your chassis for the Magnum Opus in the beginning. Don't worry, you can find each one out in the game world later. Car customization is the thing that really shines in this game. You can change so much, and a lot of the things are trade-offs, so there aren't a lot of things that are just direct upgrades. You can be a speed demon or a tanky car or anything in between. There are a few things I did wish changed how your car worked, like the chassis, suspension, and a few other things, but the car stuff is great. While you play the game, you can get a handful of weapons for the Magnum Opus, like a harpoon and side flamers. The car combat is really fun, especially when it comes to convoys. Ripping off tires with the harpoon or destroying gas tanks just really feels great. All your weapons can be upgraded, becoming more powerful and even more fun to use. You can armor your car, change the wheel type, change your engine. It's nothing on the level of something like Forza, but it's still really fun. You unlock upgrades for your car by lowering the threat level in different regions, and from some side quests too. You can also unlock other cars by finding them and bringing them back to one of the bases, but most of them aren't that interesting, but some do have interesting weapons on them. You can also choose from a few pre-made loadouts for the Magnum Opus called Archangels. I never really found myself using them, but you might find them useful for trying out different playstyles. Now, on foot combat is very similar to the Batman Arkham series, or Shadow of Mordor, using the free flow combat system. I personally love free flow, but I know some people that don't, and if you're not a fan of it, you probably wouldn't end up liking this game. The combat isn't as in-depth as Arkham Knight or Shadow of War, but it still has some unique spins on it. You level up from doing these milestone things, like reaching a combo of 50 or destroying 5 cars on foot. Some can be repeated while others can't, but those unlock upgrades for Max and also give you skill points to use at Griffa. You meet him early in the game, he'll upgrade your max health, scrap collection, among some other things. If you want to get upgrades for the Magnum Opus and get some milestones, you gotta lower the enemy presence. There are enemy camps, scarecrows, sniper towers, and minefields. The minefields are the worst because they're so tedious and you don't get to use the Magnum Opus. You have to go back to a base and grab Chum Bucket's buggy with Dinky D riding in the back. But I do think the enemy camps are probably one of the best parts of the game. There are multiple ways to get into these camps. Usually there's like a back way or like a little side passage, but you can also just destroy the perimeter defenses. Unlike Far Cry Outpost, a lot of these camps are surprisingly unique. They all share a few of the same objectives, but the theming and style of each one is so different. I do really like these. Captured camps also give you scrap every once in a while, so they're definitely something you want to do. The world also has some stranger encounters that can really range in, what they are, so they can be hit or miss. There are also big dog camps that are longest camps in the game, and usually get a decent amount of scrap and they give you a paint job. All 4 of the main region bases can be upgraded with a select few building projects. Every camp has them, but you do want to get these parts, and they're all separate. You will definitely want to build these because they can refill your ammo and your water bottle. There is a project called the Scrap Crew, which is supposed to collect scrap while the game is turned off, but it just doesn't work anymore. I think it's most likely because they shut off the servers, but I'm not sure why. Whenever you build enough projects, the base will change the look and look more lived in, which is really neat. It's a good way to show your progress. If you don't want spoilers, skip to here. You all good? Alright. The game has a pretty basic story of you mainly just trying to get a V8 engine and kill Scrotus, which is like the main bad guy of the area. You help camps and such so you can get to Gastown and get the V8. You meet a woman and her child along the way and help them with some stuff and she loves you or something, but Max can't get over his dead wife and child. It's not that engaging overall, but I like the performances. So it's not bad or good, it just doesn't really play that big of a role to me. Though I do like the ending a lot. It's your final showdown with Scrotus and taking out his convoy. His truck is on the edge of a cliff and the Magnum Opus is all fucked up. Chum Bucket wants to fix it, but you end up driving it into Scrotus's truck to push it over, but Chum Bucket stays on it and dies with it.
Take his life like he took ours.
I liked it because it actually made me feel something. I really liked Chum Bucket as a character, so it was a sad and, good ending for him. After that, you have a 1v1 with Scrotus, and, you beat him, and then you get your old car back. The end. I do really like Mad Max, both the game and the movies. The story is pretty basic, but it has fun and interesting characters to carry it along, with some good voice acting. But the meat of the game is definitely the gameplay, so if you're thinking about getting the game, don't come for an amazing story. I would highly recommend this game for anybody looking just for a fun, fairly casual, laid-back game. You can get it on PC, PS4, and Xbox One.